Has it? Okay, there we go. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Ambika and I are very excited to be here with MRMW, and today we're going to be talking about using AI to turbocharge your insights. Just to start off with a brief introduction, so we're not talking heads in front of you today. My name is Erin Pearson, and I am the VP of Marketing at Evaluserve. I've been with Evaluserve for coming on 2 years now. And prior to that, I've always worked in commercial roles in client success, sales, and marketing. Outside of work, on a more personal note, I really love to travel, and I, in fact, have been to all 7 continents. And I will hand it over to Ambika to introduce herself.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. My name is Ambika, and I'm a solutions architect with Evaluserve. I have overall 17 years of work experience into insights. And my forte is to really design custom insight solutions for strategy, product, innovation, R&D teams, marketing, customer insights teams, etc. As well as I also drive insights transformation programs for our clients. I work across sectors, but 2 of the sectors that I work a lot with is CPG and retail and technology. And outside of work, I'm pretty passionate about hiking, and especially since I spent most of my life in India, and I'm really fond of being in remote parts of Himalayas. And my last good trek was the Nanda Devi base camp. And Nanda Devi is the 2nd highest peak, Himalayan peak in India.
Awesome.
So, before we begin, it would be good for everybody to know about Evaluserve, what we are. So we are an analytics, research, and AI company enabling clients to make effective, targeted business decisions using the power of data. We do this with our 5,000 people domain expertise across verticals and functions, and our ability to use advanced technologies of AI and ML through new age digital platforms. And as we speak, we have 25,000 users who are utilizing our insights platforms to gain business edge. We're headquartered in Switzerland and present in 45 countries globally, providing insights in over 25 languages globally. And for now, 22 years that we've been in business, we've been just focused on creating impact. And that's how we've also been recognized by one of the industry thought partners in the world of insights, Forrester.
And just to transition into what we're going to be talking about in today's session. So we're going to be talking, of course, about how to turbocharge your insights teams. So we're going to start with what is actually happening today, then talk through the various pieces of maturity, how to bring research and analytics together in order to really elevate what your current programs are doing today, and then talk about success stories on people who are actually doing it at different levels of the maturity curve as well. So just to jump right in right away, we're going to start with our perspective on insights teams. So how we really see this is insights teams are there to steer the ship. We see these teams as those that are in the best position in an organization to provide the necessary intelligence to direct all of the functions towards the company's North Star. And while they're helping all of these functions strategically navigate in that direction, they're also helping them avoid potential threats or landmines that they might be hitting along that journey. Too often organizations struggle to realize some of the tangible benefits that they're getting because it's not enough to just turn data into insight. You really need to be able to turn data into action. So how do you do that, and how can you elevate what you're doing and elevate the impact that you're making is what we're going to jump into for the rest of the presentation today.
Great. So, when we think of intelligence and insights in today's day and age, what we are seeing, and everybody here on the webinar would obviously know it as well. There is lots of data sets, and more often than not, they're all disaggregated data sets, right? So I think one of the top needs for intelligence and insights is that how do you get all this data? How do you get to a holistic insights and intelligence from all these sorts of data? How do you combine them effectively to get meaningful insights? How do you then use those insights to drive foresights and strategic planning for your business, right? And that is what is the real need of intelligence, is to make it actionable, make it ready to take big competitive advantage and big investment decisions for your business, right? And we see that there's a lot of data that insights professionals and various departments have access to. You have access to market data, competitor data, innovation data, your own customer data, own consumer data. You have access to lots of supply chain data, your own innovation data. So how do you bring it all together? How do you bring it like almost like in a hive, right? How do you build those connections to then deliver various use cases for various departments, right? To enable them to create impact.
So what we're seeing is when people are bringing all of these together to create that impact, that's really what is the basis of what creates the insight. However, what is the point of having an insight if no one can actually act on it? It's not going to really result in anything for your business. So when people are bringing all of this data together from all of these different channels, there's a few key things that we see that they need to have and supply within all of their information to really make it impactful. So the first is that it needs to be accessible and self-service. So sometimes there's hundreds of people that need these insights, whether it's your sales team or the marketing team. They need to be able to access the information in the tools that they're actually using. It also needs to be self-service in order for them to just easily be able to go in themselves and be empowered themselves in order to use it. Naturally, it has to be relevant to the person. So this is a very tough one to get right as well, because what is relevant to a sales team is very different to what is relevant to a marketing team compared to your executive team, procurement team, the list goes on. So making sure that all of the information you're providing isn't just relevant to the company that you're with, but is relevant to the individual functional stakeholders that you're working with and providing all of this information to. It also needs to be easy, simple to understand. So what is, even if a 50-page PowerPoint document is super detailed, it has everything somebody could possibly need to know, it's not that simple. Somebody's not going to look through it. It's going to take them way too long to actually have that aha moment on what they actually need to do next. So it needs oftentimes a 1 to 2 sentence summary with that "so what" in it is far better than a much more detailed document. And then certainly it needs to be easy to act on. So that really combines all of these other pieces together. It needs to be, in order for it to be easy to act on, it needs to be relevant and simple and accessible to those. And certainly it needs to be timely as well. So it needs to be available when the person needs it. Because oftentimes you will see that when somebody is interested in the information, they need it at that moment. And if you follow up a week later with it, the decision has already been made. And of course, the insight was not used as part of that. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking about how to bring together research and data analytics to create all of these things to get that more holistic view.
Great. So, Erin, picking up on your point, how to make it relevant, how to make it easy to act on, very critical points, right? And I think the answer, in our opinion, and having worked with so many clients, so many Fortune 500 companies across this 22 years, is to really marry, analytics and research, right? And I think that's perhaps the most powerful thing that very, very few organizations have been able to do. And doing either one of them, which is actually happening in most of the places, we see teams that are very data analytics centered, right? And then we see teams like strategy, which tend to be more research centered. But how do you combine a lot of views and to get to that right position? Because Doing either one of them is an ineffective approach. For example, if you only look at tons and tons of data and run analytics over it, and at best integrate some external quantitative market indicators, to drive your forecasts and planning and investment, then it's an ineffective approach, right? Because you haven't taken care of so many external factors, qualitative or quantitative, that could impact your business and it could impact your whole forecasts and planning. And the other way is if you only look at an external world, right? You look at, what your competition is doing, what market is doing, where trends are happening, where consumer is going, and you're not really looking at your data. So there's a lack of soul searching in that sense, right? So how you can change if you're not really monitoring your performance effectively. So at Evaluserve, I think what we have really mastered the art over last couple of decades is to really, use an approach called what we call RADA. RADA is Research Augmented Data Analytics, right? And to bring that 360-degree view to a business problem. Now, it could be any business problem. It could be, a pricing strategy problem. It could be a consumer strategy, like consumer centricity problem. It could be a marketing ROI problem or any other, innovation area where you're actually able to combine the tons of internal data sources that you have, your internal sales performance data, your other internal innovation pipeline data, along with many, many external sources coming together. And we bring in our experience of data engineering, data science, along with our strength in new age technologies around AI, and very importantly, the deep sectoral domain expertise to drive actions and change using RADA. So I personally, going back to the point that Erin was mentioning, insights functions are sitting in such a beautiful, powerful position to influence this story, to get these two teams together to transform the functions and to bring in the whole ethos of holistic insights and catering to business partners effectively.
I think that's a really great way to describe how to bring these two different perspectives together. You have DA, which oftentimes has that massive data. It's certainly a lot of times internal data that you're bringing to the picture, and then research, you're oftentimes bringing in that external perspective as well. So this is really helping get that 360-degree view. And where that is so powerful is when organizations do that, they are considered insights-driven organizations. And what Forrester found is that insights-driven organizations grow 7 times faster than the typical organization. So really what that looks at is insights-driven organizations grow typically between 18 to 20+% year over year. So what is an insight-driven organization? Well, these businesses analyze data and really drive insights that inform business decision-making and experiences and innovation. And they do this continuously, and it's not just a one and done process. They're also able to scale up what they're doing, allowing them to really go into where the trends in the market are and surpass their competitors. So organizations that are able to do this are really making investments in data, in technology, and the people that they have to create a culture within their organization that provides insights-driven decision-making. So it's not something that's just one team is doing. It's something that's really baked into the organizational process that they have in place for the entire business. They also don't solely rely on just one type of input, such as just customer data, but they really do create that 360-degree view that merges the internal and external data together. So those are just a couple things that organizations are doing to really drive this forward. So next, we're going to start talking about how do people apply this at varying levels of the maturity model. And one of the key reasons for this is, despite this being such a huge topic, and there's obviously a lot of benefits that come with becoming an insights-driven organization, the reality is most businesses are still at this beginner stage of the maturity curve as well. So most of them are still kind of figuring out what is the data to get, how to marry different data sources together. Ambika is going to share her experience and talk a lot about how organizations are really moving up this maturity model to really create these really impactful results.
Erin, and my experience of 17 years into the insights, industry, so to say, right, says that, the whole journey is about how do you take data to information, information to insights, and insights to foresights and actions and results, right? So what we've seen is that different organizations are at different stages, but we see quite a few organizations that are still, at the first end. They're really struggling to, get the data. A lot of data is in silos. Insights are being built, in an ad hoc manner with whatever data is available, and some are just done randomly based on qualitative data, etc. Versus there are some who have actually traversed and are investing a lot on the second area, which is analytics, where they're creating data marts and data hives and data libraries and utilizing if not all, but some parts at best, for delivering certain use cases, which are very heavy analytics oriented use cases, right? But very few organizations have really been able to integrate, integrate the strategic thinking, integrate the market external environment into the analytics story pretty well to give like a holistic view to a business use case, right? And that's where we go back again to the power of holistic approach and RADA, research augmented data analytics. And we see that very, very few organizations for very limited use cases have been able to get there. But I'll also have Erin talk about that how critical it is to quickly move on that journey, because that is really going to help you build that competitive advantage and to use your insights effectively.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're seeing as people are moving up this maturity model is there is a common framework that they have in mind as they're building this out. So this is how we see the most advanced organizations are really getting that sustainable competitive advantage in the market. And this is something that we do see becoming more and more standard. And the basis of it is that it mixes humans with technology. And so what you'll see at the bottom here is the foundation that is key, and that is domain experts. And that is because domain experts, they have the context to what's happening both internally and externally, and for naturally the business that they're working with and making decisions for. Without the domain experts in place to provide this context, the AI that people are using is, quite frankly, it's going to be doomed. And it's critical that we don't walk away from this point as well. Companies who say that they can do everything with just AI just aren't going to be delivering on the quality that you need for complex business problems or being able to serve multiple functional departments. So once you have this foundation, you have this backbone workflow and this integrated process that's built on top. So first you have the data coming in. Of course, you have both internal and external data. In our case at Evaluserve, we use around 1,000 data sets commercially. And then on top of that, we apply clients' data as well. So the first thing here is that you have to solve for this integration challenge between these diverse data sets. So once you have solved for that, you can then start processing and analyze the data. And then this is the part where technology can really make a huge difference and can really support humans, because it's going to reduce a lot of the manual tasks, and it's going to make your job a lot more meaningful and allow you to focus a lot more on the strategic and the so what part of what you're doing. And then we go into the delivery mechanism. So this is a critical element, and to be honest, is oftentimes overlooked by many people, and it's a secondary thought. So this is something that it certainly can't be a secondary thought, because without this, no one can actually have the information to act on. So these days we see that there are 3 common modes of delivery that people are looking for. The first is a microservice that's plugged into a client's platform in the form of a micro front end. The second is that you could have separate platforms where you could access your insights and intelligence. And then the third is that you could have an embedded solution, which would be like software running inside of your own products. And ultimately, it's all of this coming together, what is here to drive actions. And while I haven't actually drawn this on the diagram that we're showing, this isn't really a linear process at all. This is a continuous loop. So once you get to this first actions standpoint, you really loop back to the process point as well, because you want to incorporate the feedback and the comments that you're hearing from those stakeholders to make sure that it gets better and better over time. And so your results continue to improve as well. That's also where creating this data-driven culture comes into play, that it is encouraged that everybody is using this and providing feedback, and you understand different functions are going to have different types of feedback as well, and need to see things in different formats and need to see different insights. So now that we've talked about kind of the foundation of what is really driving this and how people are doing this to move forward, we're going to share some stories of our own clients who are actually doing this at varying levels of the maturity curve as well. And we're going to go into a few different industry perspectives to try to provide some variety for you today as well.
So let me take this, first one. So this is, we were working with the central market and consumer insights team of one of the largest beer companies in the world, right? So we know that, the market for beer as a product is it's changing so fast, right? There's a reduction in per capita beer consumption globally, and alcoholic beverage companies are racing against time and consumer trends to really innovate, right? So we were trying to help this client, pave its path for emerging categories in the world of beer and non-alcoholic and alcoholic beverages. But the classic problem is that these emerging categories, they had, lack of enough previous sales data, definitely not too credible a data. So only 4 to 5 years of data in disaggregated sense. And lots of consumer trends are changing in several of the beer consuming countries. Lots of regulatory changes with respect to alcohol consumption, lots of demographic changes, religious factors, so on and so forth. So how do you kind of measure it all and drive your path in these categories for the next 5 years, right? So we worked with the insights team to help them develop a good solution so that they can actually give that solution to their regional opcos, right? So we used our solutions RADA, research augmented data analytics, to do like a holistic assessment of the future of these categories in those countries. So we combined macroeconomic data, demographic data, regulatory data, taxation, legal age, competition data, consumer behavior. So there's a lot of consumer survey data, and then category sales data. So we combine a whole host of these qualitative and quantitative indicators, and the qualitative indicators were also quantified to then identify the significant variables that were impacting the sales of these emerging categories, and then built a very strong forecasting model with our data science team to forecast the client's play in these categories. And most importantly, we did a program out of it, because it's not a static model once built and then done. How do you automate this forecast to capture the changing environment? So that actually, was such a handy tool for regional opcos. It really improved the forecast for these categories and became like a very important tool in driving category decisions in their respective countries.
I think this also lends its hand really nicely when you're building a forecasting tool into the next example that we have here as well, which would be pricing. So in this case, we were working with, it's a Fortune 100 company. It's one of the largest networking providers in the world. They started with pricing. And one of the reasons and why a lot of businesses actually start with a pricing use case is because data shows that increasing your margins by 1% can lead to a 10 or greater % increase in the amount of profits that you're bringing in. So really, this is one of the first areas that oftentimes people start, because there are a lot of quick wins that you can get, and it can really impact your bottom line, and you can see that ROI very tangibly and very quickly. So we were working with this networking provider, and they were looking to define and test a new pricing model that helped their new data as a service offering go to market, and to help optimize it as well. So to get a comprehensive view, we looked at pricing from a few different angles to bring together that internal and external data. So one of those angles is that we researched competitive pricing and positioning to really understand what was the structure and the pricing levers that their competitors were moving, and what route to market they were taking as well. So for example, how are they leveraging partners in order to bring in new business? The second area is that we researched market dynamics. So we really wanted to know what were the key drivers that transition prospects to this new model, and how would their bundling needs change based on things like their workload or the application type that they were using. And then the third is that we looked at their existing customer data to see what sort of trends and pricing preferences that we could find based on things like industry or size of their existing clients. And then we could also see things like what feature sets different clients, and especially as you segment these clients, which of these feature sets did they associate with the highest value, and what was the customer willingness to pay for these updated services. So to find this, we did both in-depth interviews and research to understand the market dynamics and value drivers. And then we also built interactive models using their own customer data to understand the trends in purchase behavior at scale. And of course, what was really critical is bringing all of this together to be able to really help build a structured go-to-market plan. So we helped them build a 3-year go-to-market plan that saw a 35% increase of adoption in these predefined bundles, because it helped them prioritize and segment who to go after and how to position when they were going after those for the change in pricing. And then we also helped them get a 50% improvement in the quote turnaround time via web simulators. So again, this is a pricing example, which is we work with a lot of people on pricing in particular, given how quick the ROI can be when you are bringing these together. It's one of the first places that a lot of people get started when they are really trying to increase their level of maturity within these organizations. All right, so then we have our next one, which is another CPG client of ours.
Thanks, Erin. So, D2C, direct to consumer, more and more CPG companies have added this channel as one of their core channels to drive growth, business growth. And the benefits are obvious, right? Your ability to control user experience with brand throughout it, by bypassing retailers like Amazon, you can increase margins. It enables you to create an omni-channel sales and marketing. Customer data and insights, you can get a lot of that. You can create personalization experiences. You get access to the user-generated content. So lots of benefits, right? So CPG companies are really trying to figure out their journey in there. And one of the examples I want to talk about is for the CPG company, where we actually used our RADA approach to help them in their D2C journey. So this company, they needed to position their new D2C meal kit offering, right? It was in a very competitive market, and we enabled the client to craft their digital journey as they were on their journey with their D2C meal kit offering. Yeah, we were to recommend their digital capabilities and also measurement framework against the benchmarks that support the business requirements and marketing vision. So to start with, again, the power of having a holistic methodology, we started developing an outside-in view, doing like a deep competitive landscape and benchmarking competitors in terms of their market share and digital capabilities, their consumer demographics they're targeting, social influences they're using, their growth stories, failures, successes, et cetera, So we also then did a market intelligence to understand the target market, consumer demographics, patterns, preferences of consumers. And then we interviewed internal stakeholders to really align on their value proposition with this offering, right? Their target audience and their digital capabilities. So we completed the evaluation of digital capabilities versus competitors, lots of web analytics, websites, analytics tagging, social media, keywords, share of voice. And we benchmarked, clients' analytics technology, websites, marketing tactics, and share of voice against the competitors. We did a gap analysis to illustrate the challenges and opportunities to address while they were scaling up the product, the D2C meal kit. And then we also created a digital roadmap for them to outline the technology and digital marketing and advanced analytics capabilities. And then how to draw a best-in-class omni-channel strategy to drive brand awareness and sales. So what this solution, which was, really bringing together an outside-in perspective with your own capabilities, what we were able to do for the client is to benchmark their core KPIs to measure their lift against the competitors. So, for example, the share of voice. We crafted competitive content. So using a lot of intelligence on competitive content, we enabled the client to craft their competitive content while they were reaching out to consumers segment via various psychographic attributes. We built a subscriber base and CRM program to optimize the consumer engagement and marketing spend. So with a lot of these, analytics and also research, what we were able to do is, the client, we ranked the client on first search result page through organic methodology. We improved the weekly conversion rate for the client from 0.5% to 3% via the ongoing program approach that we had on A/B testing. And then we reduced their customer acquisition cost over a period of time by 83%, so from $450 to $75. So we've been, running this program and help a client optimize and really, launch their D2C CPG brand pretty effectively.
I think that's like a super powerful story and what they were doing there. And then the last story that we have for you guys today is one where we actually partnered with Intel on as well. So we partnered with Intel to create a custom AI algorithm for a chip that they were creating to improve the customer experience at a Chinese retailer. And when we say retailer, it's like a Chinese grocery store. So the algorithm that was developed identifies produce using computer vision. So it could see something like, what is the difference of an orange versus a tangerine in under a millisecond? It was developed based on key research that indicated improved checkout efficiency was the best way to rapidly improve customer experience because it would shorten checkout lines. And there were some added benefits to this as well, that it would cut down on operational costs of employee training. It would reduce the number of errors in typing in the incorrect SKU codes. And so it was really a couple things that they were really able to benefit from while also enhancing the customer's experience. So the algorithm that was built has enabled better data analytics for predictively ordering certain items through the supply chain to have the right supply and demand based on what people were actually ordering and getting more accurate data on what people were buying. And because we developed this algorithm specifically for Intel's chips that would go into the scanners at the grocery stores, it's what you could call a domain-specific algorithm. And because of that, it reduced the inference time on the Intel Core i3 processor by over 50%. And this also reduced the amount of thermal design power needed and increased the performance of the chip. So I think what's really cool about this story is it's a little bit different from the others that we did work with Intel to create, and they created the hardware, the chip part, while we created the AI algorithm that brought it into this. And it really enhanced both sides of the business and customer experience at the same time to really draw everything that was doing forward. So there were some pretty powerful results that came from this, and there were a lot of orders for these chips as the retailers were seeing pretty massive improvements quite quickly. So with all of that, that concludes the presentation that we have here today. So if you would like to get in touch, or if you have like follow-up questions that you would like to send to either of us, feel free to reach out. We would love to, whether it's just say hi or answer any additional questions that you have, but would like to thank you for joining us at this presentation today.
Thank you, everyone.